Have you ever felt completely invisible in a room full of people? You speak, you contribute, you lay out an idea you've spent days refining, but it's like your words just vanish into thin air. There's a beat of silence, and then the conversation just moves on, almost as if you hadn't spoken at all. Then, moments later, someone else, maybe with a louder voice, maybe with more seniority, repeats your exact idea, perhaps with a slightly different phrasing, and the room lights up with praise. Brilliant. That's exactly what we need. The sting of that moment. It's a unique kind of pain, isn't it? It's more than just frustration or annoyance. It's a deep, cold feeling that whispers you don't matter. It's the feeling of preparing for a meeting, having a key insight, and then watching someone else get the credit while you just sit there, stunned into silence. What if I told you that feeling isn't a sign of your weakness, but the key to unlocking your most powerful self? That ache in your chest, that hot flush of humiliation, is what the renowned psychologist Carl Jung identified as a flare from your core, signaling a massive opportunity for growth. Stay with me, because you're about to learn how to transform that crushing feeling of being undervalued into an unshakable, quiet confidence that no one can ever take from you again. I've lost count of how many clients start sessions with the same lament. I swear, people look right through me. Their response is almost always the same. They try to fix the outside world. They talk louder in meetings, convinced they just need more volume. They send follow-up emails at 2 a.m. with addendums to their resumes, trying to retroactively prove their competence. They even practice witty zingers in the mirror, hoping a sharp comeback will finally make them seen. But none of it sticks, because the issue isn't outside. It's the automatic, deeply ingrained scramble that kicks in when what Jung called the inferiority complex fires up. We're not going to try to shout over the noise or outmaneuver our colleagues. Instead, we're going to spot that exact moment when the feeling of being dismissed hits. We're going to pause it, and instead of letting that energy rush outward in panic or anger, we're going to reroute it inward toward your own growth. A fair warning, the steps I'm about to share are deceptively simple, but they ask for the one thing most of us are conditioned to dodge: a moment of gentle, honest curiosity about our own internal reactions. Are you ready to stop fighting for a seat at the table and start building your own? Carl Jung had a brilliant metaphor for our psychological hang-ups. He called them complexes and described them as being like little apps running in the background of your mind. You forget they're even there until you notice your battery is completely drained. The inferiority complex is one of the most common and power-hungry of these apps. It sends you a notification, ding, whenever there's a perceived slight. Someone skips your slide in a presentation. Your boss forgets your name in a team-wide email. A friend talks over you to tell a more exciting story. Suddenly, you're not in the present moment anymore. You're hijacked. Your cheeks get hot, your throat tightens, and your mind is furiously plotting either a brilliant rebuttal to prove your worth or a silent, immediate escape. Here's the critical truth. Arguing, proving, sulking, or ghosting the meeting doesn't uninstall the app. It just feeds it more energy. The only way to begin the fix is through consciousness. The next time you feel that jolt of, "I'm being dismissed," I want you to try something radical. Do nothing. For 30 seconds, just feel it. Feel the heat, the clench in your stomach, the frantic energy. Don't judge it, don't act on it, just observe it. That half-minute pause is the start of what Jung called individuation, his term for the lifelong process of becoming a whole, integrated person. In that pause, The complex stops being a glitch that controls you and starts turning into a compass, pointing directly at the parts of yourself you've left on red, the parts that are waiting to be reclaimed. Now, let's make this tangible. Grab a scrap of paper, the back of a receipt, or open a note on your phone. I want you to think of the last time you felt truly dismissed or undervalued. Get the scene clear in your mind. Who was there? What was happening? Now, write down the exact trigger. Not the whole story, just the specific moment. Was it a word someone used? A condescending tone? Was it the way they rolled their eyes, or the heavy silence that followed your contribution? Underline it. This is the tiny spark that lit the fuse. Now, underneath that trigger, I want you to jot down the very first lie that your mind whispered to you in that moment. It was probably an absolute, a sweeping, brutal judgment. Something like, "They think I'm stupid," or "I'm completely forgettable," or "I don't belong here." Whatever your specific lie was, write it down and draw a circle around it. That is the voice of the complex. It never deals in nuance. It only speaks in crushing absolutes. Now, I want you to do something that feels strange but is incredibly powerful. Say that sentence out loud. Whisper it if you have to. When you hear "I'm forgettable" in the air, instead of just in the echo chamber of your mind, something shifts. Its power diminishes. The all-consuming fog of shame begins to shrink into something small, something manageable, a pebble you can hold in your hand. Keep that piece of paper. We're not done with it yet. This act of writing and speaking is the first step in separating yourself from the complex. You are not the lie. You are the one who is observing it. The very instant the inferiority complex fires, it presents you with two terrible deals, two reactive stances that feel like solutions but are actually traps. Jung called this the power attitude. The first deal is collapse. You shrink, you apologize, your energy communicates, "I'm sorry for existing, I'll just get out of the way." The other deal is conquest. You puff up, you get aggressive, you prepare to dominate the room and prove everyone wrong with a flood of facts or a cutting remark. One feels like weakness, the other feels like strength. But Jung saw them as two sides of the same coin, desperation. Both are an attempt to control how others see you. The quickest exit from this trap is breathtakingly simple. Before you speak, before you type that angry email, before you shrink in your chair, take one full conscious breath. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and exhale for a count of 6. That's it. 90% of my clients report that in the space of that single breath, the frantic urge to either prove themselves or attack the other person simply evaporates. The feeling of being hurt might still be there, but it's no longer in the driver's seat. You've just given the calm, grown-up part of your mind the wheel. If this concept is already starting to click for you, and you're ready to stop feeling overlooked for good, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're about to get into the deep work that moves beyond quick fixes and creates permanent internal change. Here's where the Jungian model gets incredibly practical. Jung proposed that we all have 4 primary ways of experiencing the world: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Most of us have one that is highly developed and dominant, while its direct opposite is repressed and becomes our inferior function. This inferior function is our weakest, most unconscious psychological muscle. Being undervalued almost always pokes that exact weak spot. For example, if you're all brain, a logical, data-driven person whose dominant function is thinking, Your inferior function is likely feeling. You get labeled as cold or robotic, and when you feel dismissed, it's because you failed to connect on an emotional level. Conversely, if you're the office empath, the person everyone comes to with their problems, a feeling dominant type, you might panic at the sight of a complex spreadsheet. Your inferior function is thinking. When you feel undervalued, it's often because you feel your logical contributions are dismissed. There are also sensation types who are grounded in the concrete reality of the here and now, and their opposite, intuitive types, who live in the world of possibilities and future patterns. A sensation type might be dismissed as lacking vision, while an intuitive type is seen as having their head in the clouds. The fix is not to force a personality change, but to introduce tiny daily reps to develop that weak muscle. If you're the data genius who gets called uncreative, buy a cheap box of crayons and doodle a creative cover for your next report. If you're the empath who fears data, spend 5 minutes a day looking at a stock chart, just observing it without judgment. It's not about becoming an artist or a financial analyst. It's about signaling to your unconscious, I'm willing to pick up what I once put down. Over time, that clumsy, awkward muscle gets stronger. And ironically, this developed inferior function often becomes your secret weapon, the very thing that rounds you out and that people eventually start to recognize and praise you for. This next concept is one of Jung's most profound and challenging ideas. Whatever we disown in ourselves, we don't get rid of. Instead, we unconsciously project it onto the people around us. If you have a deep, secret fear that you are unremarkable or incompetent, you will act like a magnet for people and situations that treat you that way, confirming your deepest fear. Their behavior is a perfect mirror for a belief you've been carrying around your whole life. Jung's wild, revolutionary idea. In a way, you must thank them, not for their cruelty, but for their service. They are holding up a mirror, perhaps for the 100th time, giving you another chance to finally see the disowned belief you've been schlepping around. Try this journaling exercise. Complete this sentence stem, writing the first 3 endings that come to mind without any editing or self-censorship. What I hate most about how they treated me is what I still secretly fear is true about me. For example, is that my ideas really are foolish? Is that I truly am invisible? Is that I don't deserve to be here? When you see it written down, you can finally own the projection. You can see that their behavior, while hurtful, derived its crushing power from a wound that was already there. When you take ownership of your side of the dynamic, their behavior loses its sting. It's no longer a verdict on your worth. They become extras in your movie, not the director. And now, you get to rewrite the next scene. This all might sound very deep and theoretical, but let's bring it into a pocket-sized practice you can run anytime, anywhere, at work, during a tense Thanksgiving dinner, or even in the middle of a confusing group chat. Let's walk through a scenario. You're in a team meeting, you pitch an idea, and it's met with silence. 5 minutes later, your colleague rephrases your idea, and the boss says, "Excellent, run with it." You feel that familiar hot surge of anger and invisibility. Here's the practice. Step 1. Notice the body cue. Before your mind can even spin its story, your body knows. Notice the physical sensation. Is it a clench in your jaw, a knot in your stomach, a feeling of heat rising in your face? Don't judge it, just name it. Ah, there's the heat. That's it. This simple act creates a tiny wedge of awareness. Step 2. Name the lie. Remember that piece of paper? Your complex has a favorite lie. In this moment, it's whispering it loudly. It might be, "My voice doesn't matter," or "I'm always going to be overlooked." Say the absolute sentence to yourself, quietly. There's the thought, "My voice doesn't matter." Hearing it as a distinct thought, rather than an objective truth, separates you from it. Step 3. Act opposite the power attitude. Your automatic impulse, your power attitude, will be to either collapse, slump in your chair, stay silent for the rest of the meeting, or conquer, interrupt and angrily say, "I just said that." Choose a third way. If your impulse is to shrink, do the opposite. Sit up tall, take a breath, and later in the meeting, ask a clarifying question about a different topic. Re-engage. If your impulse is to dominate, do the opposite. Find a moment to publicly agree with and validate someone else's point. By choosing a conscious opposite action, you are actively rewiring the circuit. Use this 3-step process just 3 times a week. The complex doesn't vanish overnight, but it slowly gets downgraded from a tyrant who runs your life to a quirky, annoying neighbor who sometimes drops by but no longer has a key to the house. The ultimate goal of this journey of individuation isn't about becoming impressive. It's about becoming integrated. It's not about finally winning the approval of the people who once ignored you. It's about getting to a place where their approval is irrelevant. The folks who once looked through you might start to notice you. They might applaud you, or they might not. The liberating truth is that by this point, the audition is over, because you are no longer trying out for a part in their play. Let's go back to my client, Maya, who got passed over for a promotion she felt she deserved. The old Maya would have either quit in a rage or sunk into a quiet depression, but instead, she used the tools. She named the wound. They think I'm forgettable and not a leader. She practiced the breath to stop the power attitude, and she identified her inferior function. She was a sensation type, brilliant with details but weak on long-term intuitive strategy. So for 6 months, she spent time developing that muscle. She read books on strategic planning. She asked to sit in on high-level meetings, not to contribute, but just to listen. When the next big role opened up, she applied, not because she needed revenge or validation, but because the work genuinely excited her. She landed it, but she told me the real win wasn't the new title. The real win was the day she realized that she would have been just as proud of her growth and just as excited about the work, even if no one had clapped, even if she hadn't gotten the job. That's the turn, from proving your worth to knowing your worth. If this journey of turning invisibility into integration resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and maybe send this link to that friend you have, the one who keeps saying, "I just feel so invisible at work." And then I invite you to do something brave. Drop a comment below with the one sentence your inferiority complex loves to whisper to you. Sharing it takes away its power. I read every single one, and I'll choose 3 to discuss in a follow-up video because your story matters. That stinging, crushing feeling of being undervalued isn't a verdict on your life. It isn't a sign that you are broken. It is a doorway. It is an invitation from the deepest part of yourself to turn inward and begin the most important journey of all, the journey toward wholeness. Walk through that doorway on purpose, and the very thing that once crushed you will become the bedrock of your unshakable, authentic strength.